Guys, welcome to my how to make a superhero vest. So when I was making this, I had to make up my own superhero or villain, and I was going for kind of a Black Widow and Wonder Woman look. So I've got the utility belt, vest, and cuffs, and I made it all out of plastic, foam, and a hot glue gun. So I'm excited to show you. So first we had to start with creating the pattern, and in order to do this and not have the tape stick to you, you want to wrap plastic wrap all around your body where you want the duct tape to go. So my husband was kind enough to help me with this process, and we just wrapped it all around. We went around the shoulders all the way down past the waist. And something I will tell you is you are going to put this on pretty tight, and when you cut it off, it is going to get a little bit smaller. So when we go to trace the pattern, I did not make it much bigger, and I wish I would have, but I will tell you that as we get to that point. So once you have the plastic wrap where you want it, go ahead and begin to put the duct tape all around. And again, same thing, you really want to put this where you want to go. At this point, you can also shape it at the neck and the bottom as well a little bit. So here you can see I am fully covered, surrounded. I can barely breathe, I will tell you. It is a little tight. And my husband helped me to cut this off, and let me just say, be very careful not to cut off your shirt that is underneath. It would be very easy to do, so just make sure you use a lot of caution while doing this. So he just kind of cut down. He really had to kind of pull and stretch because it was really tight, as I mentioned before. So just use caution, be careful, try not to hurt yourself or have someone hurt you. Now, I will tell you, I wish I would have done this next step first before we cut, but I didn't think about it. So you need to trace the shape that you want onto the duct tape. Actually would have been better to do that before we had cut it. So switch those two steps. Hopefully you're not following this exactly as you're making this and miss the step, but if so, it's okay. My husband was able to just hold it together for me while I drew the pattern, and then this became a family affair. My daughter came in and drew the lines on the side seams for me, and that's where I needed to cut. So once I got that off, I took it off, cut it all up, and here you can see my front pattern piece. So to take the pattern pieces, and I cut up a paper bag. I just cut the side seam and cut the bottom out and stretched it out, and then I used that to trace the pattern on. This worked out really well. It's a good sturdy paper, and like I said, I should have taken it out a little bit further even at this point, but with the duct tape getting in the way, just make sure you connect the lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, so next step, take those pattern pieces, and I needed 2 back pieces and 2 front pieces, 2 shoulder pieces. You do want to do one piece and then flip it so that you're making sure to get the opposite direction. So make sure that you just give it a flip. Plus, if you do that on the foam, the cutouts in between end up becoming a really cool shape, and this is actually what I ended up using for my cuffs. So just try to kind of use the fabric the best that you can, and when you cut it out, try to leave it in the best large size pieces that you can, because you never know, you could totally end up using that for a cuff or something else, who knows. I ended up using these extra pieces as shapes that went on my vest and all kinds of other things. So just cut with care. Cutting foam is so fun. It is definitely different than cutting fabric because it holds its shape. So it's really neat. I really enjoyed working with this, although I will tell you it has kind of a off-gassing smell. It definitely has its fumes. You can see I'm using real high-tech stuff to hold this down so you guys can see it. My spray bottle and my glue. But hey, you do what you gotta do. So this piece right here that I'm cutting out right now actually ended up being one of my cuff pieces. One of my friends that was with me actually pointed out that it made a perfect cuff looking piece. so that was really neat. It was not what I'd planned on doing. In fact, I really didn't know what I was going to do for the cuffs, but I knew I wanted to do them, so this worked out really well. I did cut off the sides a little bit to make it smaller, but just cut away. So I got my 2 back pieces. Next for the front pieces. Because it's a roll, obviously it will continue to roll up on you. You could trace this on the other side so that it doesn't roll in the direction that you're trying to cut on, but you know, I didn't think about that. So feel free to cut it on the opposite side so that it doesn't keep rolling up on you, or use something to hold it down like I did. Alright, and finally the shoulder / collar piece. Just do the same thing, trace it out and cut it out. Okay, I have all the cut pieces set aside, and here are the 2 back pieces, and you can see where I've written on it the middle, the side, and I've even got the top on the other pieces written down. And so here I'm just going to go ahead and take some hot glue. I did give myself about a 1/4 inch seam allowance so that I could glue these together and have plenty of room to glue. So just going to hot glue all the way down the middle, and as I go I'm going to kind of rub out the hot glue, because if you've used hot glue before, you know that it can kind of dry lumpy. So I just made sure that I kind of smoothed it out as I went, and just all the way down the seam. And then after I kind of got the main part hot glued, I just kind of slid the gun underneath the seam to kind of make sure that all the edges got done. Oh, and here's my cuffs. There, I will do another video on that. I just happened to do that in a different part, so I will have an actual tutorial on those. Alright, so here I'm actually cutting about a 1.5 to 2 inch strip of foam to kind of act as my reinforcement. Obviously the foam is not that thick, and so because I watched another video actually on how to make a crown, I recognized that this could actually be a pretty viable fabric if reinforced. So I went ahead and made sure to reinforce all of the seams, which I will show you later. So just go ahead and hot glue that on. Give a good thick layer of hot glue. And there you go. I've got my 2 back pieces together. I made sure to use the curve to my advantage, by the way. Make sure to do that. That's the direction that I want it to go, so do that. And there you could see that I'm going to put my side seams together, but I am going to make sure that I line up the holes. So I'm putting a front piece onto the back piece, and same thing, just going to go down the seam with hot glue. And just kind of hold the top and the bottom taut so that you just get a nice line, just like you would if you were sewing and pinning. Of course, it's much easier though because you're just hot gluing. Rub it out. And then again, here is that reinforcing piece. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfect at this point because the truth is this is just a shell of what you're going to use. For me, I ended up needing to add to the front because I didn't make it quite big enough, which was fine. And I ended up cutting a lot off to kind of make the shapes of the vest itself, which was really fun and neat. But so it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't stress about that. So I did both fronts exactly the way you just saw that, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the shoulder piece. This is just a tiny bit more tricky, so I do want to make sure that you can see this. So that was the edges lined up. That piece goes there, and you can see this is kind of the collar. I just kind of like put it up against the pieces just to kind of see how it lined up, and that's kind of what you got to do. You just got to play with it because yours may look a little bit different than mine. So just make sure that you kind of play with it, see where it lines up nicely. See there, my lines line up really well and the curve lines up, so that's where I'm going to glue it. And you can always cut it too. If it doesn't line up perfectly, don't worry about it. You can cut it down. It's not a big deal. My husband's working on the left of me here, working on his Incredibeard logo, which he did an amazing job on. So we are sharing the hot glue gun. My little nifty hot glue gun holder there, real fancy. But hey, it actually works really well, just so you know. Alright, so I got that part on, and now I'm going to make sure it's well reinforced there. Going under the seam to make sure I get any edges that aren't glued well. Alright, and now I have rolled the shoulder over, and I am just I already glued it, you can see. Sorry, I guess I forgot to record that, but I'll get this other shoulder so that you can see it. Okay, so here you can actually see that I did not use the curve to my advantage here. I accidentally put these on backwards, so I'm fighting against the curve. You can actually see how I'm having to kind of force it back. I would highly recommend when you're doing this, try to make sure that you are using the curve to your advantage. It still worked out because basically I'm going to force it to do what I want it to do by hot gluing it, because it's not that strong of a fabric that it would resist, but it would have been a lot easier if I had just used that to my advantage. And here you go. So here is the shell of the vest, which is so cool. I was really excited that I was able to make this. Honestly, I was quite nervous to even get started, but I just went for it, and I was pretty happy with the results of this. And there you go. You can see the whole thing. Alright, and the last step to the shell is just reinforcing every single seam, just like you saw me do with the side seams. Just take strips from wherever. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You may cut them to kind of go along with the curve and then just glue them right on. Do this throughout the entire vest. Okay guys, I'm going to start saying my goodbye here because this is the end of this video, part 1, how to make this vest. Stay tuned for the next video where I am going to be cutting and shaping this and other things to make this look really cool and make it look like a faux leather vest. So I'm really excited. I hope you guys will join me. Of course, like the video if you enjoyed it, and stay tuned and subscribe so that you can see when I put out other videos. Bye!